Alrighty, so we have Philipe Lins versus Ben Rothwell. So Philipe Lins, he's had a pretty tough start to his UFC career. I think he's 0-2, one knockout, one loss to decision by Andrei Arlovski. Ben Rothwell, he is the more natural heavyweight in my opinion. I think Philipe Lins was fighting at light heavyweight a few years ago, and Ben Rothwell, he cuts to heavyweight, so he is going to be a much bigger dude in there. He's got a 2 inch height advantage, a 2 inch reach advantage, and probably around a 30 pound or more weight difference in favour of Ben Rothwell. So we'll break down the striking. So for Philipe Lins, he's a counter striker. He's got fast hands for heavyweight. I think he has a pretty obvious speed advantage over Ben Rothwell. Ben Rothwell, though, he is not generally known for his speed. He's more known for his awkward footwork, his awkward upper body movement. He can be quite plodding, but he's constantly moving his head off center line, so that's kind of saves him a little bit as he's throwing strikes. And he just comes forward like a zombie, looks to get in the clinch, just keep throwing combinations, constant volume on you, just keep coming forward, get in the clinch, throw some dirty boxing uppercuts, punches to the body. He just looks to make it ugly pretty much. Whereas Philipe Lins, he has more of a technical style. He'll go for a counter two, a counter 2-3, but if you do blitz him, and if you do pressure him quite aggressively, he will just cover up, and he doesn't really look to counter. As you saw in the Arlovski fight, when Arlovski was blitzing him, he just looked to cover up and just, get defensive. Whereas when Arlovski was just popping the jab out or just throwing a straight right, Philipe Lins would look for the counter 2 or the counter 3-2. But yeah, so that's something Ben has to watch out for, or he can really start blitzing him and put the pressure on, and maybe he can nullify a little bit of that counter game from Philipe Lins. But Ben Rothwell, he has some quite concerning tendencies on the feet. He keeps his hands low pretty much all times. Off the clinch break is when he really has his hands low. He can get caught, and he does quite frequently. And he's pretty open for counters when he is leading with that rip to the body, or just like any time he leads with an uppercut, he'll lead with like a lead hand uppercut where his stance is pretty much square. His hands are nowhere near his chin. I mean, the only thing that saves him is the unorthodox upper body movement and the fact that he constantly moves his head off center line when he does throw these strikes. And he won't move his head in a conventional way either. He'll, like when he's throwing an uppercut, he'll move it to the right or he'll move it to the left. It really just depends on what he feels like, because, generally you're going to be leaning to the left when you go for that, lead uppercut as an orthodox fighter, but he'll move it off to the right and, kind of throw off opponents a little bit. But yeah, he's just quite unpredictable on the feet, and that's really what confuses opponents and gets them at times. But yeah, he has a lot of concerning tendencies. And last thing, Philipe Lins does have a nice low calf kick, really damaged Josh Copeland's lead leg with the low calf kick. I think knocked him down with leg kicks a few times. But I think that could be a good weapon here to use against Ben Rothwell, because they're, Ben Rothwell and Josh Copeland kind of similar. I'm not going to insult Ben Rothwell like that, but, just if you strip down the rest of the stuff that makes Ben Rothwell really good, just most of it is coming forward and just putting the pressure on. That's kind of what Josh Copeland does as well. So they're not similar in a lot of aspects, but in that aspect where they just come forward like zombies, and they're always going to be putting the lead leg somewhere sort of predictable. Less so for Ben Rothwell, but he is always going to be coming forward. He does square his stance, so it kind of hides his lead leg a little bit, but you can still target it. You can still target the inside leg kick if he does switch stance as he's closing distance. But I do believe it's something he could utilize here to maybe slow down the pressure of Ben Rothwell. So really quickly cover the grappling. So for Philipe Lins, he's hard to hold down. For Ben Rothwell, he's got that nice 10-finger go-go choke to defend takedowns, or he'll just lock it in on turtled opponents. So yeah, I'm not going to go too in-depth with the grappling here, because both these guys lately have been fighting a lot on the feet and not really looking to take it to the ground at all. So yeah, how these guys win fights. So for Ben Rothwell, he's got a granite chin. He's definitely got the chin advantage here. For Philipe Lins, he seems to have good cardio for a heavyweight. He's got decent anti-grappling, good takedown defense, good get-ups. He'll attack subs when people try and take him down. How these guys lose fights. So for Ben Rothwell, he is quite hittable with all the unpredictability that he brings in there. One thing that is predictable is that he will get hit quite a bit, but yeah, he does have that granite chin to rely on. Also, his striking is a little bit more effective than it looks. I know that doesn't sound like a bad thing, but I'm saying it has poor visuals because the judges don't seem to rate it very highly. He often gets the short end of decisions, in my opinion, in fights that he clearly won. Like, his striking is ugly, but it is effective, and I don't think the judges recognise that a lot of the time. For Philipe Lins, he can be quite low volume, just comes with the counter striking heavy style that he brings, so yeah. Alright, so for Ben Rothwell, his paths to victory are to blitz into the clinch. As I said before, Philipe Lins will just cover up a lot of the times when you do blitz him. But yeah, look to clinch up a lot, make it ugly, press him against the cage, make him bear your weight, and then in the clinch work the body, at distance work the body as well. For Philipe Lins, look for hooks as he's close in distance. Look to, catch him as he's moving his head side to side. So when Ben Rothwell's moving his head from side to side, you can look to catch him with those hook combinations, because he is trying to slip the punches as he's moving his head. So if you change it from straight punches to hooks, I think you can catch him there. Also, utilize a lot of footwork. He has trouble with fighters with good footwork because he is so plodding. Andrei Arlovski had a lot of success with that. More jabs than you usually throw, just to keep the volume up. Also the low calf kicks, as we talked about before. Get respect near the cage, so don't let him just push you against the cage and just enter the clinch willy-nilly. Look to really get some respect against the cage. Lins will generally do that. He's like a cornered panther. Once you do trap him against the side of the cage, he will just go balls out. I think the Alex Nicholson finish is a good example of that. Nicholson had him against the cage. Lins obviously wasn't comfortable there, just started spamming hooks, and I think knocked Nicholson out. So yeah, don't hang about in the clinch. Look to break the clinch and then throw off the clinch break. As I said before, he keeps his hands low. So how I see the fight playing out. So Lins, as I said before, he's had a tough start to his UFC career, but this is a different matchup entirely. Like, his first two opponents were counter strikers and just beat him to the punch. Rothwell is the type of opponent that Philipe Lins should strive against, and Rothwell has looked far from great since returning from that USADA suspension. So I think this is a good fight for Lins, like, all circumstances considered. Lins did have a really strange fight with Josh Copeland, where Copeland just wouldn't even raise his hands to defend his head, and Lins couldn't even drop him after throwing everything he had and sitting down on his punches. So I'm not sold on his power at heavyweight, but what could win him this particular matchup is his speed. Big Ben has an all-time chin. He hasn't been put away from punches since, I think, mid-2008. I'm talking about on the feet. Like, Kane finished him with pretty much ground and pound, and in the clinch pretty much, I think. But I think the last time he got finished was the first fight with Andrei Arlovski, which was mid-2008, and that was prime Arlovski on the juice. So he's very durable, whereas Lins, he's been put out 3 times in his career, and this is the biggest dude that Lins has ever faced in his career. So I'm kind of concerned about that. But I'm worried that Big Ben is just going to be able to take all the punches that, the smaller Lins is throwing at him and just continue to pressure and just keep wearing on Lins. Lins needs to be making sure he's not getting trapped against the fence, needs to be keeping the volume up, and also just getting respect near the cage. I think he needs to keep up with the volume of Rothwell if this fight does go long. I also think Philipe Lins might have been affected by the move to the UFC and in turn USADA. Like, his physique looks quite different from his PFL days and the organisations he was at before that. Also, that $1 million payday that he got from the PFL might have affected his motivation. Maybe that's why he hasn't looked so good in the UFC. But yeah, these types of assumptions are something I don't usually generally give too much consideration, but I feel like they should be mentioned just to give a full picture of the fight. But generally, I don't put too much weight into those things and those assumptions. But yeah, there's no way I'm betting this fight. It's lower level heavyweight. I don't really like betting heavyweight fights in general, especially at this level, just because one punch can end it all. And yeah, but I think this one should be quite competitive, as long as it lasts. And I think we should see the ceiling of Lins, because this is a tailor-made matchup for him. This is a guy who's going to walk onto his shots. He's going to really test the power of Lins, see if it's all that at heavyweight. So it's going to be good to see, how good is Philipe Lins. But overall, I think I'm going to go with Rothwell by the slightest of margins. I think it's basically a 50-50 fight. I think the line is absolutely correct, but I think the size of Ben Rothwell is going to give Lins problems. The chin, he's going to keep coming forward. He's going to keep wearing on Lins. I think he's going to out-volume him, especially later on in the fight. And I think the size is going to play a huge part here. So yeah, I'm going Rothwell, but not confident. I think it's about a 50-50 fight.